You ever have one of those brilliant ideas, a fantastic plan, but then actually making it happen turns into a complete and total mess? Yeah, you're not alone. So today, let's dive into the professional playbook for turning that chaos into success. See, it's one thing to have a great concept, but it's a whole other ballgame to manage all the moving parts, the people, the budget, the timeline, to actually bring it to life. And honestly, this is where most great ideas fall apart. Not in the concept, but in the execution. So, what's the secret sauce? I mean, how do the pros handle these huge, complex projects without everything just imploding? Is there a system? You bet there is. It really all comes down to having a solid roadmap. The Project Management Institute, you'll hear them called the PMI, they created this amazing framework that works for pretty much any industry, from software to construction, and it's all built around 5 core process groups. Okay, think of these as the 5 chapters in any project story. Initiating is getting the green light. Planning is where you draw the detailed map, budget, schedule, all that good stuff. Then you get to executing and monitoring. That's doing the work and checking the work. And finally, closing. Simple, right? Well, in the real world, it's a little more dynamic. Because the truth is, these stages aren't some neat, tidy line. They overlap, they interact. You're often executing part of the plan while you're still monitoring another part. You might even be planning the next phase while you're closing out the last one. It's a constant interactive cycle, more like a dance than a march. And here it is, the full, glorious, and, okay, admittedly pretty intimidating map from the PMI. And yeah, it looks complicated because, well, it is. You've got dozens of specific processes for everything from managing risk to communicating with stakeholders. But don't worry, we are not going to try to dissect every single one of these boxes. Instead, we're going to zero in on the absolute heart of the matter, the real engine room of any project. We're talking about 2 key phases, the execution phase and the all-important monitoring and control phase. Get these 2 right, and you are well on your way. All right, first up, execution. This is where the rubber meets the road. All that planning, all the meetings, all the documents, this is the phase where they get turned into actual, tangible work. This is the doing phase. Now, the official definition says it all. This group of processes is laser-focused on one thing, getting the work done that you said you were going to do. Simple as that. It's about taking the blueprint and, actually building the house. Now, this is by far the most resource-intensive part of the whole project. It's where your team is busiest, where your budget is getting spent, and where that clock on the wall is ticking the loudest. It's all about leading the team, making sure the quality is there, and keeping everybody in the loop. So let's break that down. Directing and managing the work. Well, that's the obvious part. It's getting things done. But here's the real insight. Successful execution is less about just giving orders and more about connection. And that's why develop team and manage communications are so critical. A skilled, collaborative team that actually talks to each other, that's the engine that prevents problems before they can even start. Okay, so your team is hard at work, you're executing the plan, you can kick back, right? Not even close. Now comes the second critical piece of the puzzle, making sure the ship is actually heading in the right direction. This is monitoring and control. This quote from the source material absolutely nails it. The whole point of this phase is to consistently check your progress against your plan. It's about spotting problems before they become full-blown disasters and making those small course corrections along the way. And this illustrates perfectly that this isn't something you do after you execute. It happens at the same time. As your team is working, you are constantly monitoring things like the scope, the schedule, and the costs to make sure everything is staying within the lines you drew back in the planning phase. Think of this phase as your project's immune system. It fights off things like scope creep. You know what I'm talking about. When those little unapproved, can you just add this one thing requests start piling up and threaten to derail everything? This phase keeps a hawkeye on the calendar, the wallet, and the horizon, watching for any new risks that could sink you. All right, all this hard work and careful monitoring builds toward one final crucial step. You've done the work, you've checked the work, you've reached the destination, now it's time to land the plane. This is the closing phase, and it is way more important than most people think. So, the closing process group isn't just about yelling, "We're done!" It's a formal set of procedures to officially shut down the project in a really clean, organized way.
It makes sure everything is wrapped up with a bow, signed off on, and delivered properly.
A proper closing is what really separates the pros from the amateurs. It archives all your lessons learned so the next project can be even smarter. It gets formal acceptance that, yes, the job is truly finished. And maybe most importantly, it officially releases your team and resources to go tackle the next big challenge.
So, we've looked at all these processes and phases. What's the big picture here? I mean, why go through all this trouble instead of just, winging it? Well, the difference is literally night and day. Winging it gets you chaos, constant firefighting, and blown deadlines. But using a framework, that gives you clarity, predictability, and a proactive approach that dramatically boosts your chances of success. It's the difference between steering the ship and just reacting to the waves.
So here's the crucial takeaway. Project management isn't about rigid rules and a bunch of red tape. It's about having a proven, repeatable system that gives structure to your creativity and turns your ambitious goals into finished realities. And look, this way of thinking isn't just for building software or skyscrapers. It can apply to almost anything: planning a wedding, launching a small business, even writing a book. So I'll leave you with this. What's the big project in your world right now? And could a better roadmap help you stick the landing?